Jerseys of Hope is a nonprofit committed to inspiring a sense of community and well-being in hospitals through the donation of athletic jerseys to be worn by patients rooting for their favorite team. In the past 7 years, Jerseys of Hope has given out over 2,000 jerseys to lift the spirits of hospital patients. They have impacted the needy in 4 countries and 11 states. Please visit jerseysofhope.org to learn more. We're so honored to partner with Jerseys of Hope and be a small part of the large impact they make.
Welcome to the Unscripted Podcast. My name's Corby LaCroix, and the song you're hearing right now is called Great and Mighty One, available on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your music. But for now, recording from the Unscripted studio, here's your host and my friend, Aaron Conrad.
Great Redeemer, God of grace, come receive our songs of praise.
From my Jerseys of Hope studios here in Columbus, Ohio. Well, first of all, returning guest, but we also have a very important thing that's happening from our returning guest. So, Joel, I think this might be the third time you're on. Joel, can you introduce yourself? We'll go from there.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Yeah, my name's Joel Penton. I live here in Hilliard, Ohio, and I'm the founder and CEO of Lifewise Academy, and just really grateful for an opportunity to have this conversation.
Man, so from the first time you and I interviewed, both of our processes are way better. We both have mics now.
Right, yeah.
We have backgrounds. It's not a Zoom meeting, right? Like, it's pretty cool. And you've done far more in that time than I have, so I can't wait to dig into that today. But I do want to start with this. So there's a viral moment going out about OSU's campus and the baptisms and things. Hey, former OSU player. But I have to say this. Dude, you walked so they could run, because you kind of did that when you were at OSU. It just wasn't in the whatever. I'm not familiar with Ohio State's campus. It wasn't out there on the lawn. You did it in St. John's Arena, man. Like you had a moment like what's happening right now. Social media wasn't quite what it is,
right?
But man, you had an event. I think what was it called? The main event?
That's exactly right. It was called the main event. It was my senior year, 2006, and in a somewhat similar way, although, I feel like what's happening now, or what happened several weeks ago on campus, was primarily student focused, right? They were inviting students out, and we did that with the Campus Crusade Ministry crew. My freshman, sophomore, and junior year at Ohio State, we would partner with crew for one crew meeting a year where the football players would actually lead the meeting, and they would promote it, and we would pack out one of the lecture halls there, Independence Hall, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And then my senior year, we got together and said, well, what if we took this next level? What if we opened up to the community? And we thought, well, what if we rented St. John Arena, and we were able to, we were a student group, so we were able to essentially secure the facility for next to nothing because we were a student group, and open it up. And we had 13,000 people come to St. John Arena. As you mentioned, this was before the social. I mean, I think Facebook was a thing, but social media was not what it is today, and so it wasn't really a viral moment in the sense of like a social media thing. But I know that it sent some shockwaves.
It did. And if there was stories and TikToks and Twitter and all those things, it would have been everywhere. It would have been viral. So that's when I saw that, my first thought of was you. And like, man, Joel and his friends and team did that so that these guys could run. But at the end of the day, I'm a Carolina fan. I don't hate Ohio State. I'm not an Ohio State fan, but I'm a fan of what's happening at that one campus, and now it appears to be happening at many other campuses, which is so cool. Like, how cool is that for you to have your alma mater leading this? Last spring we saw a lot of bad on campuses. How cool is it to see this generation do things so cool and do things so well for all the right reasons?
It is very cool. It is very exciting, and from my perspective, having been there and then kind of tracking with the team, I now speak to the team a few times a year in different contexts. But to recognize that it's the Lord doing it. And he's using people. So there are some guys on campus who have been faithfully ministering to those guys in discipleship and Bible study, just faithful, consistent, week after week, month after month, year after year. And that's really how the Lord works in his kingdom, is that he uses his faithful people. And then at times, the Lord, through his Spirit, lights things, on fire. And it's in those moments, it's, you want to look around and you want to give credit, or you want to do this or that. But recognizing, it's those who've been faithfully tilling the soil, planting the seeds, watering. And at the end of the day, it's the Lord who brings the increase and does something amazing. And so certainly, those guys ministering should get credit in a sense. The guys on the team, the boldness, it's amazing and exciting and does bring back memories to a degree. But at the end of the day, praise God that he's chosen to do this.
And I think we're going to talk a lot more about that in what you're doing now. But at the end of the day, I think Paul would be very proud of what's happening at Ohio State.
There's no question.
I don't know. We'll ask him one day, right?
That's right.
We'll sit down with Paul and say, hey, man, were you proud of what happened at Ohio State? Okay, before we jump into it, can you just talk about you, your family? Can you just introduce yourself again, reintroduce yourself to this audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So my kind of story in a nutshell, I'm from small town, Northwest Ohio, Van Wert, Ohio. Came to faith in high school, and that's when the Lord really grabbed my heart, and I became something of an evangelist, I guess, starting to speak in churches and get involved in ministry. And that was accelerated through the platform I had as a football player. I played at Ohio State, played defensive tackle for the Buckeyes from 2002 to 2006. While I was there through the Athletes in Action ministry, I met my wife, Bethany, who was a gymnast at Ohio State. The Lord so we've been married 19 years. Can you believe that? 19
That's crazy.
years. We were still in school when we got married. Couldn't find any reason to wait. And so the Lord's given us 5 wonderful children. They are now ages 15, 13, 12, 9, 7. So we got a 15-year-old who is 15 and a half. And so he has his learner's permit. And I mean, that is a milestone that is terrifying on a variety of levels. So it's 4 boys and a girl, and the Lord has blessed us. I spent 12 years traveling and speaking full-time, doing school assemblies in high schools and middle schools from the platform as a former football player. And about 5 years ago, 6, I guess, the Lord dropped this concept in my lap of released time religious instruction that I'd never heard of, and it's starting to really take off.
Okay. So, and thank you, because I can't believe it's been 19 years. I think we probably knew y'all maybe even before you got married. I don't remember. It's
my
crazy.
My guess is that if it was through Northwest Bible, so my wife and I got married. We went on honeymoon over spring break because we were still in school, and moved into, then as soon as we got back, an apartment in Hilliard. And because of a random invitation, we showed up at Northwest Bible Church on a Sunday morning. Yeah. And we have gone nowhere else. So we've been members of Northwest for 19 years. And I'm sure within the first weeks is when you and I met.
Yeah. And heard you speak there, and again, followed everything that you've done since then. It's been awesome. So let's talk about Lifewise. I know you've got a hard stop. So I want to, I'm not rushing, but I want to get really to the most important thing, which is what you're doing now. You've mentioned it. Can you talk about Lifewise? And let's start with how you learned about even what Lifewise is, that concept. And then we're going to talk about the growth, because it's incredible what's happening. So can you start with just kind of what Lifewise is?
Yeah. So Lifewise is, I mentioned the term released time religious instruction, which still very few people have ever heard that. That's a legal term that came out of a very little known Supreme Court ruling from 1950, in the era when the Bible was being removed from public schools, prayer was being removed from public schools. All these different programs that were in any way associated with public schools were being challenged and taken to the courts. A particular program was challenged and taken to the courts, and the U.S. Supreme Court in 1952 upheld this particular program, and they said it was constitutional because it met three now is kind of the threefold test, that this Bible education program or religious instruction program was happening off school property. So it wasn't using the state, facilities. It was privately funded and, not using state dollars. And students had parental permission. So it was entirely optional. It wasn't compulsory. So that happened in 1952. However, it was in the midst of this this era that everything was getting shut down in terms of Bible education and whatnot. So it kind of got lost in the mix, and very few people utilized this practice of released time religious instruction, students leaving the school building, getting a Bible lesson and going back to school. And I knew nothing of it. I was in full-time ministry to public schools, had never heard of it until 2018. I was in my hometown and ran into a guy I know named Tim. Tim said, "Joel, I'd really like your help with our released time program." I said, "What's that? I've never heard of it." And he said, "Oh, well, we pull kids out of the school, the elementary school, and we teach them a Bible lesson. We take them back to school." I said, "Tim, that sounds illegal. That can't be real." He explained the Supreme Court ruling. And he said, not only, did we start doing this in 2012 is when they started, he said, but we have 95% of our entire elementary school enrolled, being taught the Bible on a weekly basis. And he said he wanted my help to answer the question, why doesn't every community in the country have a program like this?
Right.
I did some research, quickly discovered that release time is easy to explain, take kids out of school, teach them the Bible, bring them back. But it's not easy to implement because you basically have to start a private school. You got to find a facility, curriculum, staffing, transportation, insurance, technology. I mean, the list goes on and on. I went back to the group in my hometown and I said, here's what I think what you need to do. You need to make a program that's replicable, that's scalable, that communities can implement easily. You develop the systems and processes and training and all of that. And then I do think that the timing's right. I do think this would spread. And the group in my hometown, they basically said, "Hey, that sounds like a great idea. We don't want to do that. We think you should do that."
That's a great idea.
And
Good
so
luck with that.
You're right. And so I was kind of voluntold in 2018. And that's how Lifewise Academy at least was.
It's been amazing to watch the growth. You invited me. You had some early breakfasts. I remember when you were getting this launched and had people in. And do you still do the breakfast thing?
Not in that exact format. We do. In fact, later today, we do. Yeah, we do now a virtual thing because we have people from all over the country. I mean,
right.
we do a virtual lunch and learn with the founder, and we had people from almost 10 states, I think, last week on.
Incredible, because that was the thing. So I've watched this grassroots kind of thing happen. And can you talk about your goal? Because I know you said what was the goal? I'm trying to remember. It was like 20 by 2020, or I don't know. I'll let you do it.
It was 25 by 25. So yeah, we launched our first 2 schools in 2019, just to kind of proof of concept. Will this really work? They went great. Then, of course, there's a pandemic, and so while we survived and even grew a little, it's challenging in its own way. But things were going well enough in 2020 that we looked out for a 5-year goal. We always think of 5-year goals, and so we said, "Hey, let's try to serve 25 schools by 2025." That sounds reasonable. It also sounds kind of cute and, kind of a slogan, right. Because we need to raise money. And, so 25 by 25, that was the big goal. Let's put that on a t-shirt. And the very next year in 2021, we were in 36 schools.
Unbelievable.
and then it's been insane since then.
How many schools today?
We're confirmed as of yesterday, because the number does change at this point almost every day. We're confirmed for this school year in 597 schools. And that's
unbelievable.
That's across 30 states.
I mean, I want everybody to hear that. So that's what the Lord can do, right? Like you set out a goal for 25. This is still 2024 last time I checked. It might be. I don't know. But it's 2024. You set out a goal for 25 schools and you just said 500 what?
97.
500. So 600 schools. Man, that's only what the Lord can do. And one of my favorite verses talks about, hey, trust me in this and see if I don't throw open the doors,
Mm.
right? And
Right.
man, I feel like that's what's happening. And it's so exciting to watch that for you. But here's what I want to transition to next. That has not been without a cost, both financially, but also a lot of arrows thrown your way. And you've been on Fox News, right? Did I see that you were on Fox News?
Yeah, Fox News, but that was after, and that was a pleasant experience. A less pleasant experience was what just preceded that, was being on NBC Nightly News and MSNBC.
Yeah, so you've had to take fire, and that's just the world that we're in. I mean, there was a debate last night between the potential two future presidents. Crazy that we're just in this very hot political moment, and man,
Right.
you're now, hey, welcome to the world of being an entrepreneur. You're launching right in the midst of something that is a very, very unfortunately political thing, but the scripture told us that this is what's going to happen. But you have persevered through that. So can you talk about taking fire, for this vision that you have? And what I have so much respect for you. And why I really wanted to have you on is because I have so much respect for how you've taken the flame. A lot of people would have said, you know what, let's just shut it down. I'm done. I don't need this. You can probably do a lot of other things. You're a brilliant guy. You have great connections, but you've stayed true to the course. Can you just talk about some of the fire you've had to just receive?
Yeah, sure. It was really interesting. For the first 4 years, really until the last 6 months, we received almost no even pushback. I mean, just a little bit here and there, but very little. In fact, we were very surprised by that. And I'd say that, if you're asking, if part of your question is how have we coped with it, or how do I personally? Well, part of it is that I went in fully expecting it. I knew that we were going to bring this fully legal thing, that it's not in any way legally controversial. It's not new. It's not controversial. But it has been under the radar. It has been kind of this hidden thing. And so when it was brought to light and made available and popularized, it would be incredibly exciting to people who've been longing for this.
Yeah.
But there would be those who really hate the Bible or, and want
to. It's where we live in.
Yeah. And want to remove all influence and mention of, the Bible from society. I knew there'd be strong reactions on both sides. That's what I anticipated. And what I was trusting in I was trusting in the Lord, but what I, was confident in is that it's black and white, that this is legal, And so then I was pleasantly surprised when for 4 years we saw almost no controversy, There would be some maybe hesitation or, oh, I've never heard of this, when we would talk to a community or to a school. But then when we were able to point to a Supreme Court ruling, point to state laws, it diffused everything. People, they said, this is very clear. Well, what am I going to get upset about? And then we're able to show the positive impact to the things everybody likes, like attendance goes up and behavior improves. However, in the last 6 months, it's like the whole thing has flipped. There's still, by the numbers, those who are giving encouragement and support and getting involved in a positive way are exponentially higher than those that are opposing. And I have numbers I look at that can show that. But the opposing voices and those who have, frankly, hate in their hearts for what we're doing has been much more vocal and now much more organized. And so initially, so how do I deal with it? Number one, we expected this. So we're like, okay, here it finally is. We were kind of waiting, and we expected it not just because of the practicalities I mentioned about, legalities, but because Scripture says it.
Right.
I mean,
right. It tells us that. Yeah.
Right. Like Jesus says, as clear as can be. I believe it's John 18. He says, they hated me. They're going to hate you. So buckle up. Right. He couldn't be more clear. And we've lived a very insulated life here in America.
Sure.
With amazing religious freedoms. And so, thank you to our founders for building this in, right? But that's not the the typical, right, over the centuries. Like the typical is Christians give their lives. So in this Colosseum, Christians gave their lives. In missions overseas, Christians give their lives. And here we are in America, and things have changed a little bit. And so, some people are going to say mean things on Facebook. Like some people are going to show up, like a handful of people are going to show up to protest a thing here or there. I mean, it's not something you look for, but it's not surprising. And so expecting it's been a way, but then something we've been saying to our team, we've been telling our team a threefold response as we've started to see this opposition. Number one is that we want to humbly listen and learn from our opposition, recognizing that Lifewise is not perfect. I'm not perfect. And if somebody might have a legitimate concern, they might say, hey, I don't think this policy is good enough, or I don't think this material is good enough. Well, they might be right. So we should just listen and say, oh, well, let's update the policy. Let's rewrite that document, or, let's get better. So that's one thing. The second thing is that we want to fervently pray. Like, this should be the thing that drives us to our knees in prayer, that we pray for each other, that we pray for wisdom, and that we pray for our opponents, for those who are coming at us with hate in their hearts because it so bothers them that students are learning the Bible. My goodness, we need to be praying for these people, for their hearts, and not just that they would, stop attacking us, but for the sake of their hearts and for their families. And then the third thing is that we want to boldly unite in the mission, understanding that those that are opposing what we're doing, they want us to divide. They want us to stop. They want us to slow down. And it is almost simply an indication that we must be hitting pretty close to the target. Right. So if there's ever a time to unite and to keep moving forward, now's the time.
I give you so much respect for that. Last week, I posted something very close to my heart, and it had nothing to do with politics, had nothing to do with religion, had nothing to do with anything. I posted on Facebook and it got banned for reasons I can't explain. And I think that I know what they are. But anyway, and then they went and they pulled 4 or 5 more others. Well, my response was, I'm out. I'm done. So the point in it, it's not about me. The point is, like, man, you have such a steadfast belief and in what you do. It's so impressive. And I think it takes a man like you to do that, to lead this team to do that. And then also that they see your leadership in the midst of those moments. Cause again, me out of it, I'm out, deuces. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. Right. And you've stayed true to that. And that's really, really impressive. So what scares you the most now as the leader of Lifewise? What scares you the most?
Well, I don't think I'd use the word scare, because it's all in the Lord's hands, and he's going to do what, if he wants to dismantle the whole thing tomorrow, he can do that, and we'll trust him. What I don't like seeing, of course, I really don't like seeing how it's being politicized. One of the ways that we're able to keep pressing forward, and it is that we know the purity of our intentions and what we're doing, like, and the simplicity, right? Like, we know kids need the word of God. They need the gospel. Many parents want it for their children. Even if the parents who don't take their kids to church, many of them know that it would be a positive thing for their child. And so they are eager to sign them up and are grateful for the opportunity. And it is genuinely that simple. Here's a way a kid can have the option to have Bible education as part of their school day. And that's it. And so we know the simplicity, and it is bothersome to see people then twist it and to say, this is about right wing this, or this is about, or to say there's financial motivations, or to try to bake. And it goes to show that people simply don't understand Christianity, or they don't understand the Bible, that they can't get their heads to that people would genuinely do this out of love for the Lord and out of love for kids. However, you can't explain it any other way. Like, why are people writing these checks? Why are people volunteering their time? Why are people that is it. But they have to try to come up with, there's got to be ulterior motive. There's got to be something else. And so then they, politicize it. Like the MSNBC thing was like insane. People had put it together. You know, it was about, you know, Lifewise being some sort of strategy to change blue voting areas into red voting areas. And
Come on.
they talked about the Church of Trump. And it was like, it was crazy. And where are you getting this? Like, have we come this far that you can't even recognize simply Christians doing what Christians do, and that's valuing the Bible? And I'd say that's very frustrating.
That's a whole nother episode we can probably do. Let me say this, because a good friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, Justin, I'll just say Justin, played at a competing Big Ten university.
If you call that competition, I don't know if I'd even.
It's such an Ohio State. Anyway, no, I ran into him one time, and we literally were not talking about. We were just talking about you, the success of Lifewise, just, you know, how proud of you we are. Literally, it was just a random conversation. And at some point he was like, man, you know, that guy's getting like no money out of this. So I just want to say that for anybody listening, for anybody that maybe saw something on MSNBC or whoever else might have said something otherwise, man, you got 5 kids and you are the CEO or whatever your title exactly is of Lifewise, man. And here's this guy that just, again, random conversation. And he was like, that guy's like, if you knew how little that guy's taking for his own family, it's incredible. And so I just want to share that. I don't know what it is. It's none of my business. And you don't have to share that. I'm just sharing the fact that what I know is that a mutual friend of ours said, if you only knew how little that guy's taking out of this business, you're doing this because you love the Lord and you want to make heaven full.
Well, I'll have to talk to Justin about not sharing my personal finances with others. But
I tell you, he did not give me a number either. I promise you. I just gave you the entire context of the conversation and every word he said. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, that, you know, my wife and I, we went into full-time ministry. We talked about going to the mission field when we were in college. And then when it was time, when college was over and it was time to kind of decide what I was going to do, it didn't seem to make sense to go to the mission field because I had this platform being an Ohio State player that it just felt like it was my responsibility to make use of it. But we tried to take with us that mentality that our lives are not for us. And so our goals are not to see how many dollar bills we can shove in our pockets. Like that's just not. That's not why we're here. And so, and with Lifewise in particular, we have a culture of sacrifice. And we say that regularly. We say there's not a single Lifewise class that takes place without God's people making serious sacrifices. Those Bibles didn't get on those desks without sacrifices. That bus didn't show up. That bus wasn't purchased without sacrifices. That bus wasn't driven without sacrifices. That teacher isn't there. Like every part along the way is sacrifice. You know, these students aren't paying to come and be taught the Bible. And it's not just financial. It's time, it's energy. The entire thing runs on sacrifice. And so when I see my team, which is now, we have like over 1,000 staff, which is wild. Wow. When I see sacrifices each and every day, that dwarfs any sacrifices I make. I'll say that.
Well, that's leadership, man. It's just leadership. And when your team sees their leader, you know, do what you do, the way you do it, how you do it, it makes it easier when you work for someone like that. I think if you were sitting up on a high horse in an ivory tower, you know, the team's not going to respond in that way, but you're in the mud with them, so to speak. You're in the everyday grind with them. They see you taking the fire that we talked about a little while ago. Okay. So I want to look to the future, and then I want to get all the links. So if people are still listening, if you're listening and you're out for a walk or a drive, please hang on, because let's just do them now. What are the links, just in case people want to log off, but I hope they don't, because I want to hear where you're going. What are the links? How can people find out more if they listen to this and they want to find out for their community?
Yeah, the best thing is just our website, which is simply lifewise.org. That's lifewise.org. Everything is there. You can watch videos, case studies, impact stories, how it works, how to get it started, download the curriculum, all of those things. But most importantly, you can search any school district in the nation and you can get connected. So we've now heard from individuals in more than 5,000 school districts across the country. Wow. And there's only 13,000 public school districts in total. But the way the process works is first through a signature campaign. People in the community gather at least 50 signatures just so we know there's people that really want to do this, and then begin moving through the process of a steering committee and all sorts of steps. There's a 10-step process. But yeah, we've received signatures from more than 5,000 district, at least one signature in more than 5,000 districts. But you can find your school district and find out where your school district stands. Is there already a live program? Are they in the planning phases? Are they gathering signatures? Do they have donation, volunteer, other needs? And that'd be my big invitation to anyone listening, is to find their way to the website, lifewise.org. And before you leave, find your way to your local school district and see how you can get connected.
Awesome. Okay. Hopefully everybody stays around, because I want them to hear where you're going now, because you got some construction going on.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. So you've been to so I'm currently sitting in our studio, which in one sense is temporary. It's in a detached garage behind an old, have you not, you need to come out and see it.
I do. I need to come see it.
It's in a detached garage behind an old home that has been renovated. I think it's like a 1,200 square foot home that now every inch is, and then some, is used and occupied by staff. And we've even leased out adjacent property, storefront property. It's kind of ridiculous. It's this like hodgepodge of areas just to find places for people to work. But by God's grace, we were able to purchase a building that's not 1,200 square feet, but is 23,000 square feet.
Wow.
Which is, I mean, in my opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, one of the most, I would almost want to say, iconic buildings in Hilliard, Ohio. And we're under renovation right now. It's all torn up. I mean, they just finished demo, so it's at its like most torn up place, but they'll be renovating. And in the new year, we'll be moving into our new office and training facility. So it's really a threefold purpose project. Certainly our offices, which we've outgrown, and so our entire administrative staff will move there, those that aren't remote. But then two other main focuses would be an updated studio like what I'm in now, but much larger and more capable, because so much of what we do is content creation and training for people who are spread all over the country. And then training facilities. So there'll be a large meeting room and other meeting rooms where we'll bring in staff. And we're already having, on a monthly basis, waves of new staff coming in for training and boot camps and that type of thing. And so we'll be able to have it all in one place and even have some room to grow. We're very excited.
It's incredible. And the thing is, they say location, location, location. Man, it's the perfect location. It's right off of an exit in our town, right in the heart of our town in Hilliard. When you get off the exit at 270, boom, it is right there. You're right. It's an iconic building anyway. My daughter used to swim in that building. You just said that the pool is now full of rocks.
That's right.
That's right.
The only thing wrong with the building when we bought it is that it had two giant pools inside. And so, of course, now the footprint of those rooms were literally perfect for a large meeting space and a studio. However, they had pools in them. So yeah, it required quite a bit of gravel.
So you didn't keep one of the pools just for the staff to, have swim days and work out?
We talked about it. In fact, we even talked, right after we bought it, we should at least have one swim party. Of course, there's all sorts of jokes about the largest baptismal, in Central Ohio. But no, none of that really worked out. Those pools are gone.
That's hysterical. All right. Well, I'm really excited for you guys. I really am. It's so cool to drive by it and know the early stages of this thing. And the one thing I want to say too, before you log off, I know you got to go, man, everything you do, and I have a feeling you got this from Trestle, you got this from Ohio State. everything you do with excellence. Like our buddy Roy Hall, and everything that the content is excellent, the look is excellent. Everything you guys do is with excellence. Did you learn that from your time with Coach Tressel at Ohio State? I mean, where did you have that? Because it's so important that you do that. I could not do what you do because I don't do things with excellence.
Okay.
I do them to get by. And so that's just not me. That's me. But man, what you do is with excellence. And so I know the new building will be with excellence. This vision has been with excellence. You hit 100% of the time. Where did you learn that?
Well, that's a great question. It's certainly been a process. I would agree that a big chapter in that process was playing for Ohio State and seeing even the way with which Coach Tressel held himself and presented himself. And so that was a lot of proof. But I think it starts young. Well, I mean, there's the story of the three little pigs, right? House of brick, right? Not house of hay. But I think it's something you learn more and more and more and more. And by God's grace, I was exposed, I think, to enough examples, probably on both sides, that I do believe there's a watershed somewhere in sometimes people talk about a poverty theology versus poverty mentality versus a prosperity or not prosperity. I'm sorry, abundance mentality or a scarcity mentality versus abundance mentality. And that doesn't exactly apply to excellence, but it kind of does. It's small vision versus big vision. And if you go down the path of it's good enough, it'll make do, it's good enough, it's like that can become a downward spiral in a sense like that. But if you but there's another path, which is we can do better, we can do better, we can do better. And so having a iterative cycle of improvement, saying we're going to do the best we can, knowing it's really just a draft because we're going to get feedback and we're going to find bugs with it. And then, you know what, now we're going to do the best we can, which is even better. And so there's a virtuous spiral, there's the vicious cycle of good enough. And then there's the virtuous cycle of we can do better. And so certainly Ohio State, but, just my experience, and I think it is accentuated in the nonprofit space. I think that for whatever reason, in the nonprofit world, in the ministry world, out of good intentions, people want to be good stewards, but that often means sacrificing excellence, which I believe is unwise, because it's critical to make the proper investments for impact, to maximize impact. And so this happens to be a passion of mine. I could probably talk about this all day long, but that's a little bit of the process for me.
Well, I think ultimately the CEO of your organization is the Lord. And you laid this organization at his feet early on, I'm sure, through prayer. This is your mission field. You talked about going to the mission field. This is your mission field. And the CEO is the Lord, and you want to please the CEO. And he's the best CEO because he's very demanding in terms of what he requires of us. And as you said earlier, the sacrifices we have to make, but he's also full of grace. And so I have a feeling you lead your organization and you've seen the growth that you have because you lead in that same way. Like there's an excellence that you require, you want to meet the goal, but you also have a grace for your team to what you just said. Hey, okay, that's a great draft, but we're not there yet. Like, let's get more. Here's the grace. Good job. Great job. You guys did a great job. Now let's make it better. You know what I mean? And that's a very fine line for a leader, but man, you lead well. And I'm just so honored to call you my friend and watch this just God's story happen. I'm so honored and I'm so thankful for any time that you give us.
Well, I really appreciate that. I mean, I tell people I often feel like I'm a kite in a hurricane.
Yeah.
Kind of along for the ride. How much of I'm doing stuff, but sometimes I just feel like I'm watching the Lord work, and so regularly, daily basis, things happen that it's very easy to step back and say, okay, I had no control over that. None.
Right. Yeah.
And the Lord used it. And so we have a saying around here. there's the whole work smarter, not harder. But our saying on our staff, we talk about it a lot, is we're going to work smarter and harder by God's grace. That we're going to use our brains as much as we can, knowing God gave us these brains. And so we're going to think strategy, we're going to think innovation, we're going to think technology, we're going to think it all because it's all a gift from God. But that doesn't mean so we can slack off. No, we're going to compound it by getting up earlier, staying up later, being the hardest working team that there is. And at the end of the day, we're going to look back at all of it and say, it's all by God's grace. If I was able to use my brain, well, that was God's grace. If I was able to wake up this morning, that was God's grace. So my hard work, it's not like I work over here and God's grace is over here. No, my hard work is the manifestation of the grace of God. And so he gets all the credit. He gets all the glory.
Well, that's why you have a great organization, my friend. Can you give us the links one more time?
Absolutely. It's lifewise.org, LIFEWISE. Head there and find your local school district. And Aaron, I have to say, I'm really grateful for you. I'm grateful for all you're doing and this opportunity, man, your encouragement. And yeah, like you said, I'm pointing at it right now, in that room over there in the early days. I don't know if we'd even launched a single program. And
though.
Oh yeah, it was. We could barely afford it at that point.
Oh,
23,000 square foot building. But yeah, your steadfast encouragement has been really. I just really appreciated it.
Well, I don't look great in a cheerleading outfit, but I will always be a huge cheerleader for Lifewise. I really will. Not so much Ohio State, but I will be a cheerleader for Lifewise and everything you're doing, man. I appreciate you. We pray for you guys. I know you're going to take fire, and I think it's going to get harder, not better. And you know that as a player. Yep. You've been in difficult stadiums, difficult moments, difficult arenas, the big game every year, right? And yet there's an iconic photo where you made a big play in the big game. And so I know you're a guy that'll match the moment, and that's going to happen. That's what I pray for you, is that you and your team just continue to match the moment, because the Lord needs that, and the Lord needs to be in our schools.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we'll take. And for anybody listening, yes, jump on the website, but we'll take your prayers as well. We appreciate it.
Huge. I love you, brother. Thanks for coming on, man.
You too, man. Appreciate it.
Talk soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Unscripted Podcast with your host, Aaron Conrad, from his studio in Old Hilliard. Make sure to like, share, follow, and review on your favorite podcast platforms. Also, make sure to check out my song Great and Mighty One on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you find your music. We'll see you next time on Unscripted with Aaron Conrad.